So with that, let's get on with our demo. We have Scott Hampton that is prepared to do something for us tonight.
Are you sure?
Scott, you out
Is
there?
it me? Am I supposed to do something? Wow.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, I just want to let you guys know I'm all watching you. So you better watch my demo. Santa says
now
so.
I found you. You changed your name.
Yeah.
I love that you've got a Festivus poster back there. That's great fun.
Oh, Festivus. Yes.
And just know, Scott,
Festivus for the rest of us.
Year, I have no regret.
Okay, let's do the starting intro for all the demos right now. This is Scott Hampton's demo. He's going to show it, folks. If you have a question, you may ask the question during the seminar, the demonstration. But if you have a comment, which is different than a question, hold on to those comments till we wrap up. We're going to do a Q&A, okay? We'd like to see them then. We're going to mute everybody right now. And Scott, you have to unmute yourself in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And unmute yourself. I have you muted. That's it. Head behind the curtain.
There we go. Hiding behind the curtain.
You guys can hear me now, do that, right? So we don't pick up any sound. Yes.
All right. Good. All right. Welcome to my shop again here in Central California. This is the Christmas ornament demo. I'll be showing how to make one of these little babies. Ooh. This is a big leaf maple burl from Oregon, and the black is ebony. So hopefully, if I have enough time, I'll be making 2 different types of finials. But instead of this type of finial, I want to do, the first one will be on making an icicle type finial that I learned from Bob Roseanne many, many years ago. He's pretty much retired from wood turning now. So anybody that's been around wood turning for a while know who Bob Roseanne is. He is a miniature type. He turned a lot of miniature stuff, and he is really, really known for his ornaments. And I was fortunate enough to take a in-person all-day lesson class with him. And it really got me started in all these ornaments, back in 2008. So it's been doing it for a while. So let me switch cameras here. All right, so this is a piece of big leaf maple burl, and it's got some spalting in it, just like that ornament I just showed you. So hopefully it's deep enough for it's going to show up once I get it turned around. So that will be really, really pretty. I really like to add the spalting to it. It adds a little bit of a character to the ornaments and just plain stuff like burl's ever plain, right? So I got to kick on the lathe here. There we go. We got power. Yay. And we'll get this thing running. And what I need to do is put my little helmet down. Hopefully I don't sound too much like Darth Vader, but we'll see. Let me know.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You sound good.
So I turn these kind of fast. It is on a glue block, and I use normal wood glue to glue it to it. I've tried CA, and about 2 out of 10 would always pop off. So I decided just to switch over to using regular glue, and I use rubber bands around it just to clamp it together and let it sit for a couple of days, and they're great that way. So I'm just going to start turning it around. I'm going to use pretty much the whole turning with this shallow flute spindle gouge that I've got. It's got about a 40-degree grind on it, and it's perfect for making the curves on this. So first thing I want to do is rough turn it and get it round. I'm going to turn up my weight just a little bit more. Faster I go, the less choppy the cut is. So I got about 2,600 RPMs right now. So this piece of burl is acting a little tough, but I'll get through it. So I'll just take some lighter cuts, not so deep. There we go. We got it nice and round, I believe. We're going to stop the lathe and have a look just to make sure. And we still have a little flat spot. That's fine. That's going to get turned away. You just want it generally round. There's some really pretty grain in there, and we did get to keep the spalting, which is what I always look for with pieces like this. So I'm going to switch my cameras. Hopefully I get the right one. Oh, let's see. There we go. This is going to allow you to see turning on the top and around the side there. So I'm going to zoom in that camera so you guys can see it just a little bit better. There we go. So what I want to do is I'm just creating like an oval shaped bead. I'm going to do the right side that's towards the tailstock first. So I want to take my tool rest and just slide it over on an angle. And what I want to do is I'm just going to create just a straight chamfer right here first before I start creating the curve. Just for general, keep my eye on things. I'm just going to kind of eyeball the center of this. Do my best. In fact, I'm going to bring the center up just a little bit further up to give it a more longer look on the bottom and a shorter on the top. And this will be where the top of the curve is right there. So I'm just creating a straight chamfer across it. No curve yet. This is what makes this kind of cutting easier instead of just trying to make it create, you know, back and forth with the curve constantly trying to create that bead. That's where I want to stop on this angle. I'm going to bring my lathe down around again. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a second chamfer here. And you can see it forming already just by doing this. And I can leave a little bit of a flat on the bottom because I'm about ready to turn all that away. I'm just going to do one sweeping cut, maybe two, just to join those two chamfers together and create a curve. So I want to start with the flute straight up, bevel rubbing without cutting, then I'll lift the back of the handle up until I start getting a cut. And then I'm going to twist the tool handle, and at the same time swing that handle away towards the lip threadways. I'm taking too big of a cut there, so I'm going to come back and take this down. And I'll come back and pick this up. And I'll come back and just kind of clean that cut up a little bit. Got some high spots on it there. All right, I'm just going to sit back and take a look at it. The curve looks really, really good. So I'm just going to do a pull cut towards me, just to kind of clean everything up using the wing of the tool there. Flute almost closed. And I just kind of start on my right foot, with my left foot behind me, and I just kind of lean back and follow that curve around with that wing. And that's pretty good for, you want to make sure you get most of the dips out of it that you can find or see at this point.
It's pretty good for government work.
Pardon?
I said, that's excellent for government work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, so I'm going to turn off the lathe because I really need to move this, the tool rest around back this way, and I'm close to the jaws, so I do not want to have the lathe running when I get this close to the jaws. Just in case it gets caught in there, you're going to be in big trouble. So that's what I want. I want a slight dome here, and it's going to be like a shorter dome coming back this way, because that way there's more wood showing off that spalting, and I won't be cutting so much away. That's why I wanted to make the shape this way. First thing I want to do is I'm just going to start creating V cuts right here. Cutting this down. Just going back and forth, mostly on the glue block here. Get a lot of that picking out of the way. And I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to kind of round this part over, kind of join that curve in. And then I just want to do the same thing, but I got to do it the opposite way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my right foot. I'm going to lean over on my left as I make this curve cut. So I got the bevel facing up. Lift the back of the handle until I start getting a cut. Do a twist and a push and lean back towards your headstock. We'll have to do this a couple of times here just to get the shape right. And one more. Just going to clean this out of the way first. Now you want to save some of this because you do need to hollow it out still. But you do want to get the general shape in first. Because it is harder to take these more aggressive cuts when it's hollow, because it can cause some vibration issues and maybe make the globe crack. So I'm just going to clean this off in this area here and use my wing and I'm going to finish that shape after I hollow it. I just want to leave that mask there. So I'm using my wing just to clean this up back here. And I do see a line that formed right there. So I'm going to come back and go the opposite way. And some sanding is going to take care of this too. So, all right. So we got the shape pretty much done. So I want to grab me my parting tool. I'm going to turn off the lathe before I move my tool rest away from this. What I want to do next is I need to create a divot right in the center there for the drill bit to go in. Well, I'll be using 2 different size drill bits. Just that way the drill bit doesn't wander off and try to follow the grain pattern of a crazy piece of burl. So you need to turn the lathe down quite a bit. And the first drill bit I'm going to use is a 5/8. And I'm just going to go part way in. I'm just going to keep an eye on that. But sometimes I'm just going to mark it just to show you guys that new to making these type of ornaments. This is the best way to make sure you don't go all the way through, because I use 2 different size drill bits, a larger one on the bottom and a smaller one on the top, and I'll explain why I do that in just a little while. So I got about 20 millimeters there that I want to go in. So I'm going to measure that on the drill bit. There you go. You at least don't want to go deeper than that. You can go more shallow and the hollowing tools will take care of it once you reach that point. So I got the lathe turned all the way down. And I'm going to turn it up to about 400 or 500. And let's see. Always hold on to the chuck. Keeps it from spinning. Maybe in your Morse taper, there's no guarantee it's going to be in there tight. And I've had them, I've let go before, and all of a sudden the thing starts spinning in there, and it's not fun to try to fix that. So, oh, there we go. So I'm just keeping an eye on that green mark. This wood is really dry. I bought it and brought it home back in 2005. It's been sitting around my shop for quite a while. That's typical of this kind of wood. When you're backing it out, it's going to squeak at you. And you want to back it up all the way. We're going to take that drill bit out and put a 3/8 in. This is a 5/8 drill bit that I just used. And Dane, if anybody writes any questions in the chat, could you just relay them to me? I'd really appreciate that.
Certainly, no problem.
All right. So this one's going to go all the way through to the into the glue block. It's going to find that little point that the Forstner bit left inside. And you'll be able to hear the difference when it gets into the glue block. The entire sound will change. Like just like that. Plus the color of the chips coming out will be different. And you can also glance in there to make sure you went all the way through. And I did. All right. So now we're going to hollow it. First, we want to get this out of the way. You don't want that in the tailstock when you're running a handle around back here and you let your elbow run into that sharp point of the drill bit. Oh, nose getting a little runny tonight. It's a little chilly in my shop this evening, so all right. Hollowing tools. Where are you? There we go. So this is the hollowing tool I'm going to use. It's a Mike Joukowsky rocket tool with a #1 Hunter carbide bit. The difference between this carbide bit and the kind you find on like easy wood tools is this one's cupped. You see that cup there, it's not flat. And it's very, very sharp, very difficult to sharpen in your own shop. The good thing is you can't adjust it when it feels dull. Just turn it a little bit, screw it back down. I've been using this tip for 2 years, probably a good 250 ornaments, and it's still going. So the most danger you have of these are if they hit a hard surface, they crack and break. They're very brittle if you don't take care of them like that. If they hit the floor, you got to buy a new one. Good thing is they only cost like 25 bucks. So I got 2 years worth of, and a whole lot of ornaments out of that one. So I'm not complaining about the cost at all.
Yeah,
All right,
sounds
so
like
we
it's
want to
worth
bring, huh? Yeah.
Sounds like it's worth it. Yeah, good
Oh
quality
yeah.
cutter.
Hunter tools are real. The tips he makes are top notch. So you want to adjust the tool rest where this tip is going to be running on center. Just want to bring it in. I need to back up my tool rest just a little bit more. There we go. Make sure when you swing this hand around or the back handle, it's not going to run into the rest there. So I'm going to switch different cameras so you guys can see. Not that one. Do that. Oh, that's weird. I got overhead. Pardon while I do this here. Can't find the right one. It's not the one I want. I wanted the opposite. Okay, so we'll just do the total side view there. You guys can see everything. I was hoping you guys could see my side of things. There we go. The remote fell on the ground. It's not where it belongs. So I'm going to widen this shot out. And you guys will be able to see how I'm swinging the tool around, plus what it's doing inside there. So that's two pretty good shots right there.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right. So we want to turn this down. You don't want to do this fast. Probably about 900 RPMs, between 900 and 1,000. It's good for these tips. Because they can, if you're going too fast, they can tend to get a bit grabby. But you want to put it in there, start cutting. You want to turn that tip over to about 45 degrees on the inside there. You can see where it's at. And we're just going to do some back and forth cuts. I'm not worried about measuring wall thickness or anything. This is just to lighten the ornament. So when it's on a natural tree, it doesn't weigh down the branch. On a fake tree, you don't really have to worry about that so much. But it's good to have a nice light ornament, I think. The only thing you don't want to do, you don't want to go through the side. So you don't want to go too thin either. And I forgot to bring my air hose over here, so I'm just gonna have to do it the old fashioned way. First, I'm gonna put my finger in there and see how much I'm taking off. All right, so I could use a little bit in the middle. I like to leave a little bit of meat where that little hole is, because that's where all the weight and glue is gonna be to hold the ornament on the tree. And that would be the most fragile part. So I leave a little extra thickness here on this end, just right in this area where we drilled that hole. So I can just take a little bit of that down. Probably shouldn't, probably break the thing maybe. So you just want to turn the tool over on its side. Just go back and forth on that little thickness a little bit, not much. And it could use a little more thinning, I felt in there, so. It goes pretty quick once you get into a production run. Because when I'm in a production run, what I will do is I'll mark where I'm in between the jaws on the glue block. I'll shape the outside, grab another one, shape the outside, and so on and so forth. Then I'll drill it out and hollow it. I'll go back and do that several times. It makes it a little bit quicker. And the hole is there, yep. So I don't want to take it out yet, but we're done there. I'm not worried about any shavings because it didn't really build up too much in there. So now what we want to do is finish shaping the outside, parting it off, which is pretty easy to do, really. You just got to be able to trust yourself when you're getting in between these two small places between the jaws and the ornament here. So what I'm going to do is I'll start with this, the tool I had, and I might switch over to a regular smaller spindle gouge so I can get down in there. We'll see how it goes. I need to turn this up. Back up to about 2,700 RPMs. So I'm just going to start peeling some of this away. Careful not to get all the way up to the ornament quite yet. You got to remember you got that 3/8 inch hole in there too, so you don't want to go too deep with that yet. So we're going to turn the tool almost on its side with the flute facing towards the headstock. I'm just going to kind of.
Scott, any chance we can switch camera view?
Oh, sorry. There we go.
There we go.
Sorry.
Perfect.
You can see how I took all that wood away. Right there. You can still see where that glue block is right in there. That's why I like to use an entirely different color of glue block compared to the blank, so I can tell which one is which.
Yeah, smart.
Okay, so we can take a little bit more of that before I get my thin parting tool and part this off. There, seems like my bevel is leaving a little bit, some burn marks, but we'll clean that up real quick here. And we'll just do that, flip it over, flute almost closed, and we'll do a pull cut towards me. Clean up that shape a little bit, and that'll also get rid of those little burn marks. And I'm going to take a look, see, I'm going to stop the lathe and see how far I've come into. So I need to take a little bit more off right there. I can see the glue block in the way. I can still see some attached right there. So I just want to turn it almost here. You got the flute at about 45 degrees, so it'll fit into this tiny little spot a little bit better. There we go. That's what I was looking for. I can tell now that all that glue block is gone. Come in here, clean that up. It's like that. And at this point, this is where some of the sanding would come in. So I'm just going to touch it with some, just some 180 real quick, just to kind of clean it up. Because I really want to put at least an oil finish on it so you guys can see how pretty this grain is. You want to turn the blade down to about 600. I got a real sensitive speed dial on my lathe, so I got very touchy. And this will get rid of any small tool marks, like high spots. This helps refine the shape. I wouldn't start with anything lower than 180, because it's going to leave a lot of scratches in, especially if you're using a burl like this. And then you just got to work all those scratches out using more and more different grits of sandpaper. That can take a lot of time. So I always try to make my cuts good enough to where I can just sand with 180. And it's not hard to do if you just spend the time practicing. And what you want to do too, when you get down and you're really kind of done with the roughing and you're just getting that shape just right, treat those as that one cut's going to be the last cut you make. Even though it won't be, if you treat it that way, you'll learn to get that lighter touch on your tool. You won't leave so many tool marks behind. So I think that looks pretty good. Grab me a paper towel, kind of wipe the dust off. Now it's ready to part off. And I will be reversing this using a shop-made mandrel. I'll show you guys how to make real quick. Very easy. I use a thin parting tool. And I just work my way right down there and make sure I'm getting like half the burl and half the glue block. We don't want to leave any glue block left on the piece. You can just hold it. Don't put your finger in the hole to hold it. And it'll just pop off in your hand just like that. So as you can see, when you part it off, it does leave a little bit of a residue. Sometimes you could hide that with a large finial on the top, but this looks a little too big. So I'm going to show you how to make that mandrel real quick. First, I'll just see if I got one that's, I have like 3 or 4 different size ones already made. Let me see if one of those will fit that before I go through all the mandrel hunting. So these are the mandrels. And you'll see why I use a smaller hole here. It's going to allow me to reverse it. So this is 3/8. I always use the 3/8 for the small hole. You can make the mandrel any size you really want, but it has to be the same size as that hole you drill. And then this part right here is tapered. And it allows you to. So this one's not quite the right size. That's why I have like 2 or 3 of them in here. That's one I usually have good luck with.
There you go.
Just like that. As you can see, they're not really that hard to make. You just measure this hole with calipers and you just make it that size right there and then just create a taper. This is 5/8, so I try to get the 5/8 about right in the center there. And that way, if the hole's a little bit bigger, it'll still work. But sometimes if you rub the hollowing tools on that hole, it will widen it up some. And I think that's what happened here. So, and there's my mark. So I'll put that between 1 and 2 of my jaws. So that's where I always mark my mandrels and things like that between 1 and 2. So it'll line up and hopefully it won't be running out of true. Been using this mandrel a lot this last season, so hopefully it's holding up pretty good here. And it's running just a little bit out. I don't want that, so I can probably twist the ornament. Sometimes that helps. Okay, so this part needs to go in a little further. That's pretty true, because all we need to do is just clean up this area here and get some sandpaper back there and around the side there. Well, we already sanded back here, so it's mostly up here. Just want to make sure that's good and tight. Now, if you're unsure if this is going to be tight enough, let me show you another thing I do. I grab my tail center, and I have a little copper fitting from the hardware store. Let me put my tools up in the rack. They're not underfoot. Where is that little thing? So it's just a little copper coupling, and it fits right there, right up against the threads of my tail center there. Just bring this up. And this can help, especially if you really need to shape the top in there and you really couldn't get to it earlier when it was on the glue block. Just wheel this right up in here. It's like that. You don't want to squish it because it'll crack it. This is just to settle it down. And that needs to be adjusted just a little bit. You want that copper running as true as you can. Looks like I pretty much got it there. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab me a smaller tool, my small spindle gouge, and just clean up this little area right here. Let me put that in focus. You can see that. That's where the glue was, right in here. You want to really kind of clean that up if you can. Grab me a smaller 1/2 inch spindle gouge here. And I'm just going to do some draw cuts there just to clean that up. You don't need to be turning real fast for this. Usually do it under 1,000.
Can you do your overview camera?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yep, nice.
So I'm just going to bring it in with the fluid almost closed, and I'm just going to almost bring it up to that coupler. And I just want to clean that up. Get rid of some of that glue residue. That way there's a clean surface for the finial to glue to. It's like that. So if you're doing any turning like this, it's best to have your tailstock up here in some form or fashion. So just needs a little bit more. Now you all know what I do. When I make 250 of these ornaments a year, thereabouts. And now I just want to blend those two, make sure the curve blends together. Sure, I got pretty much that glue gone. Yep. I can back this off and see how tight it is. So it's still going to spin on me, so I'm not going to do any more turning. This will be covered up by that finial. I just don't like a big wide finial on these to try to cover up any bad looking wood, but that's good enough right there. And this is a good time you can grab a piece of sandpaper and just finish sanding the front. This was hard to get to when it was turned around on the glue block. There we go. Let's have a look. Looks pretty smooth, feels smooth. So I'm gonna grab me a folded paper towel and some walnut oil. That way we can see this. Get rid of that. That way we can see the color of the grain pop on this. This is a pasteurized walnut oil made for finishing. I buy 2 kinds. This is Doctor's Wood Shop, and I also like to use Mike Mahoney's. The difference being Mike Mahoney's walnut oil has it's got a brownish tint to it. And this is, like, as you can see, is really, really clear. And this is why I like to use this on the burl, because it brings out its true colors without adding any deepness or offset colors that might not be natural to the piece. And that really brought out, you can see the color,
Yeah, it's a nice figure.
Really nice figure in this, and I love the spalting on it. And I'll just get the oil I can there, and I can pop it off. And so I left a little bit of dry spot there for for glue, same on the bottom. That way the glue doesn't have to fight the oil just to hold on to the finials. And I quickly just wipe off any excess. And if I was doing this in real time, I'd put it aside. I'd come back in a couple days, apply another coat. And these will end up with 4 or 5 coats. And then sometimes I'll apply a high gloss wax to them using the same mandrel and buff it up. And sometimes I just leave it as the oil. I don't like to spray them. Gives it an artificial kind of look when you spray burl, in my opinion. So I'm going to put that aside and we can get the mandrel out and we can get started on a couple of finials. How are we on time, Dane?
Oh, you're doing fabulous. No worries.
I know we started the demo a little later than we usually do, so.
Right. No, you're good.
All right. So let's do that one icicle ornament or finial, because there's a bunch of videos on how to make onion finials on YouTube, including my channel. Did I put my key? There you are. I need to take this off the way here. I need to put my pin jaws in here. I think you guys will like the icicle type of finials. You don't see too many people making them anymore, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
A lot of people are, you see all kinds of different shapes of onion finials everywhere, but not these kinds. So I'm grabbing me a piece of maple. Just kind of, I'm gonna use maple to make it. I kind of like to make these type of finials out of maple because they tend to stand out better on a tree than a dark like ebony would. Ebony's great for the onion shaped type, but once you see this, you'll see why I need a light color for this one. So this one's got a lot of figure in it, and that will show up in the finial when it's done. This one's rather plain. So I'm going to go with the figured one. I haven't really had any trouble with whether it's figured or not breaking apart on me or snapping in half while I'm turning it. These are 1 inch square by 6 inches long. And what I'll probably get both the top finial and the bottom finial out of this. Okay, so I'm just tightening it up enough just to check on make sure it's running true. Just give it a few taps. Doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to turn it around. And I do this without the tailstock in place. It's a little too much. You want to try to get this as close as you can. So I'm going to bring up my good way to check this is you put your thumb right in the middle there and you're touching the corner and you just spin it. And if it feels equal, then you're pretty much there. And that feels really good right there. So I can tighten it down. You want to make sure that you don't need to bottom it out in here. In fact, that makes it a little more difficult to get it running true. The bottom piece is up against the bottom of the jaws. So I like to leave at least 3/4 of an inch or 3/4 of the piece inside the jaws without touching the bottom. But you want to really crank it down good. This is going to be overhanging, no support. Another nose wipe here. Got my, it's so cold outside. I got most of I don't have any windows or ventilation going right now. It's believe it or not, Central California right now, it's 38 degrees outside. Surprising being in California, right? Now,
Yes, it is.
those you guys in Canada and stuff, I feel for you, but we're having a little bit of a cold snap ourselves here, and Central California. And it's supposed to get colder before, and then it's supposed to warm up into the 60s the day after Christmas. This is really odd.
Yeah, it's cold here in Tucson too, Scott.
Yeah, I think that cold snap's everywhere.
Yeah,
All right, so you want to bring your tool rest up. You want to adjust the height. I put it right there on an angle, and just below that part, I'll tighten my tool rest. It's like that. Put my helmet down, and I'm going to use a small, I believe it's a 1 1/4. I always forget the size of this thing. Oh yeah, it's a 3/4 inch roughing gouge, which is great for these. You don't need one of those big, you can use a big one, but for me, I think that's overkill. And I bought this one back in, wow, over 10 years ago from Packard, and I'm still using it, still going great. And for this one, you want to really roll up the feet up. And I'll show you why in a second here. So let me slow it back down to like 1,000. And you're going to hear something in the cut as to why I turn these fast. This is at about 1,100. You're going to hear it. I need to lower my tools just a little bit more for this tool. Make sure you don't touch the jaws there. But you're going to hear it like bouncing around. It's going to hear that. You'll never get that round safely when it's like that, with a piece out there like that. If you turn it up, I mean, at 3,000 RPMs, listen to the difference of the cut here. Big difference, much smoother, and actually safer at this speed. You just want to break the corners off before you try to do any deeper cuts. I'm going to do a peeling cuts with the side of the tool here when I get close to the tool rest. You don't want to try to bring your tool in this way against it, because that wing can get caught right there in the jaws. It takes about 15 minutes to make one of these finials. You know, the more you practice, the faster you can do it. Once I get into production mode, I don't even keep track anymore. I can probably get about six to 8 out in an hour. Now, you can hear that vibration. That's normal because the piece is overhanging out there quite a bit. Now, if you feel safer, you can bring up your tailstock. But once you get to the thin parts, you do, yeah, there's a lot of figure in here. It's kind of throwing my cuts off a little bit, but it'll work. When you start getting those thin parts, you do not want to use a tailstock, because the pressure of it will bend and crack and snap your finials. So at this point, I'm going to mark right here. This is going to be the very top of my finial, or the very bottom of it, if you might say, that goes into the ornament. And just measure that by eye, and this will be part of the finial that goes in the top. And I want to create a cove right here as a detail, so I want to mark that off. This is all by eye. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to start creating, narrowing this down, almost like the shape of a narrow Christmas tree, if you're turning a Christmas tree. I'm going to start at the end and just start working my way up towards the headstock. You don't have to take really deep cuts for this. This is just general shaping at this point. Kind of smooth it out. There's a bump right there that I can see. And you want to really narrow down the end a bit before you go grabbing your spindle gouges. I'll be using two different kinds of spindle gouges, a very small detail gouge, and this is your average 1/2 inch. So that's about as far as I'm going to go with this tool, or I'd have to drop the tool rest down. And that's going to be overkill anyway if I keep on using that. So I'm going to grab me a small detail gouge, and I'm just going to create a point on the end there. This is a 1/4, or is it a one? Yep, 1/4 inch detail gouge. It's from Thompson Tools. Very nice. I've got about a 35-degree grind on the bevel there. It lets me get into tighter spaces. I want to bring this in. I'm just going to start creating a point on the end. Tool rest might be a little high. I feel like I'm lifting the handle to cut it, so I want to drop it a little bit. There we go. It's gotten a little bit better at this height. If the tool doesn't feel like it's working properly, check and see what the problem might be. Adjusting the tool rest height, the sharpness of the tool. Okay, so we got that done. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to do a kind of a deep dive into here. Almost like creating a top bead here. I'm going to start with the flute up and the bevel rubbing. And I'm just going to raise the handle a little bit until I feel it start cutting. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit higher because that's a little bit too close there for the shape I want. We can adjust that as we go. I got a cut. We're going to do that. So I can take a lot more of this down now because I got a general idea of what it's going to look like after creating that V cut. Because each of these are going to just get a little incrementally bigger as we work our way up, or that's the hope. And now I'm just going to do an opposite cut here, bevel up, do a turn, come in the opposite direction here. Now I'm just going to kind of round this part over. I'm going to give it a more of a raindrop effect. Just like that. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to touch it with some sandpaper. I don't worry about going down the lathe at this point. Your sandpaper 180 is going to actually help you shape this point, smooth it all out, get rid of any tool marks or ups and downs, and it'll help you round over the highest point of here and kind of shape it. I don't put a really sharp point on the end because they tend to break off, so I kind of round it over with the sandpaper a little bit. All right, so we got a good shape going there. So I'm going to grab me my larger spindle gouge. And we're just going to start taking some of this wood down. Let's see, which one should I use here? I'm going to try my Glazer one on this one. This is a detail gouge too, but it's bigger than the one I've got. As you can see, I've really cut back on the bevel there so I can get into tight spaces. And we'll see how this one cuts. So I want to move my tool rest over just ever so slightly. Kind of line it up a little bit better with the piece. There we go. And we're just going to kind of create a half a cove, working our way down to this one raindrop there. And then we can just turn the tool, kind of do that V cut, kind of clean that up, get a little more narrower. And the thinner you can go with these, the more delicate they look, of course. So some gentle, nice cuts here. And we'll just clean that little bit up right there. And maybe turn the tool on its side a little bit, just kind of put a little V cut right in there. That way it looks kind of separated from each other when you do that. All right. I want to take this down quite a bit. Nice gentle curve. The bottom there, just like that. And this needs to come down a little bit because it is a, all right. We're going to stop there and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use this bigger tool for this one. Get the bevel rub and lift the bottom of the handle up. And just do another V cut there. And you can see it's a little bit bigger, maybe. Either that or it's the same size. You're just going to kind of cut away some of this wood, get it out of the way. That way we can do a little bit more of a deeper cut right here. There's a kind of a full mark there. I want to kind of clean that up, which is really light cuts. There we go. And that needs to be a little bit rounder for my taste, right there. So you want to sand as you go. That way you don't have to come back to it when this piece is thinner and more flexible. And just kind of curl up the sandpaper here, just kind of get in here and helps create that shape right in here. There we go. That's a little bit better looking. We're well on our way. You could do 3 or 4 of these type of shapes on the finial. I've done up to 6, depending on how long it is. Let's see, a lot of this away. Once you made several of these, you can pretty much just get it done by eye. Not having to do any measuring or anything like that. And you can see I'm getting thinner right here. I want to go too much thinner because you don't want to go thinner than this one that's at the bottom. So it's just going to look kind of awkward. I'm going to separate the two there. I'm going to take this down a little bit more. Not a whole bunch more. That way we can make this, pull this part a little bit bigger. All right, so get the bevel rub and lift the back of the handle, do a twist and a push in, just like that. And we can just gently kind of use the tip of the tool to round all that over. Then we can take some of this down. And I want to take a bunch of this away. This is where that cove is going to be. In fact, I'm going to kind of make a smaller cove or just move it up the piece of wood a little bit. Give me a little bit extra wood to play with here. So. And we need to go a little bit deeper with this cut. All right, now we just need to pare this down. A little bit more off right there, round this over a little bit better. Right now I'm just getting the general shape and then I'm going to come in with sandpaper and clean up that one area we just did. And I'll hold your breath, right? You've done enough of these, you'll be surprised. You'll learn how resilient wood is. I've had some of my ornaments, my small ones like these, and it's spinning around on the lathe. I'll get this little thing down to like a less than a 1/16 of an inch, and it'll still be on the wood or on the lathe, just spinning just as fast as ever. And then I'll turn off the lathe and grab it in my hand, and it just pops off. But you can go really thin with wood without it breaking. You just got to work with it to learn all that. Just gonna take a little bit more of this down, kind of eyeballing it, looking horizontally here. So clean this up. And then we're just going to do that diving cut right here, right under where that clove is going to go. But we want to clean some of this down towards that, give you some working room. Make this a little bit more round right here. And clean this up a little bit. And need to sand. I forgot to sand this section, so I'm just gonna hit that really quick. You see it's kind of flexing now. You want to be gentle. This is the time you don't want to be too heavy-handed with anything, including the sanding. So it's a little bit thinner right in that area, maybe just a tad, not much. There we go. Clean that up a little bit there. I want to clean up this area right here. This is where this kind of grind really shines. You're able to get down in these little tight spots. Just like that. I just want to create more of a little bit of a cove type curve coming down this way. There we go, just like that. I'll clean this up. Now the cove goes really quick. So I didn't measure it. So there's this a little bit shorter than the other ones, but it still looks nice. Clean that up a little bit. Down in there. All right, stop with the sanding. Now we're going to create that cove. So I'm going to grab me my normal size 1/2-inch spindle gouge. And I just want to kind of start roughing down some wood here. You want to stop down in the middle. You want those two curves to join up. You can get pretty narrow doing this. You can get way down in there. So I like to leave this top bigger diameter than the bottom of the cove. Give it a little bit more of a design look. And I'm just going to touch this down. It's a little bit big for me, so I'm just going to take it down a little bit more. Let's come back and got my flute almost closed away from me. Do a nice little slicing, slight cut right down there towards the middle. And you can use the tip of your tool here as the shape of the cove on the bottom by going back and forth a little bit. There we go. I'm gonna turn it over here. There's kind of a tool mark right there I want to get rid of. Otherwise, sanding would take a while. Same right here, but I'm going to let the sandpaper take care of that. That's a little difficult to get to. So I'm going to get a fresh part of this sandpaper rolled over. Just that, or just grab a fresh piece. Probably be easier. And so I fold it into thirds. And I kind of curl it up just like that. And I come in and clean this all up. Yeah, we're almost done. This is the spinning I really wanted to show tonight, so we're doing good.
Yeah, it looks good. Doing a good job, Scott.
All right, so we got that done. Grab that globe here, and I'm just gonna turn off the lathe and decide what kind of design I want to go up against there. So I'm not gonna do anything too fancy. So what I'm gonna do is a backward chamfer this way, and then I'm gonna start creating the size, a tenon on here that will go into the hole. So I'm gonna grab me my veneer calipers. You always want to measure the hole, because like I said, you can accidentally touch the hauling tools on this hole and it will actually enlarge further than 5/8, which is the drill bit we used. There we go. Just what we want. So we just want to go a little bit smaller because the glue will. I use wood glue to put these together, not CA glue. CA glue does become brittle over time. And you don't want these things falling apart when it's sitting on a tree after it's been passed down to family members and things like that. So, all right, so I'm grabbing my parting tool, my regular parting tool. And I'm just going to bring it, come in on a slant right here and create a slight chamfer right there. But first I want to kind of go in just a little bit. This is where the tenon's going to be. I'm just going to go slightly in to make this cut a little bit easier to make. So I can come in on this angle here. Just like that. That looks good. And I touch it with the sandpaper, but be careful. You don't want to get any of those crisp lines. So you don't want to really round that part over right here. All right, looking good. I'm just going to open this up just a little bit. And I know I'm not there yet, but I always like to check just to get an idea how far I've got to go. And I will cut it back here in the back. That way, if I go too small, I still have enough wood there to correct the size before I put it in the piece. Oh, almost, okay, that's good. So I want to go just a little bit smaller for that wood expansion when you add wood glue to it. And there's one thing I'm going to do that I've noticed some wood turners don't do when they make these type of ornaments. That's good. It's a little bit of play. Is they don't undercut this area under here, especially on a shape like this one, where you can see you really need a good undercut there so it'll rest nice and firm against the body of the globe. So what I've done is I've taken a pin turner's parting tool and I've grinded it on a skew angle just like that. So when I come in here and I hold this at an angle, when I get to the bottom, this will be flat against the tenon. But when I come in like this, it's going to create that undercut. Like that. And go a little bit deeper. Almost there. And that should be pretty darn good for this. There we go. Touch it with sandpaper one more time. Then we can part it off, grab the thin parting tool. Where did I put you? Right there. Turn down the lathe. You don't want this thing flying across the room. Back up my tool rest just a little bit for this tool. And you don't need to leave a whole lot, but you need enough just to add strength to this when it's hanging from the bottom of that globe. And I'm just gently touching it and letting it pop off in my hands. And we'll see how good we did with that undercut. It should fit right up in there, just like that. As you can see, there's no gaps.
Nice.
Union.
Yeah, that's because of that undercut. I've seen so many of them where they just cut it flat and then they got a nice design, but then there's a gap all the way around and you
Yep.
Right.
you know, and you can see the tenon and everything. So I try to dress that up as best I can. I'm just going to pull this piece out just a little bit. It's just going to be a very small, kind of flat, pancake-like finial. I need to trim that part off there with the parting tool. So I'm going to get a couple of tools out of the way so they're not underfoot. So I'm just going to part this little thing off here. It's really not needed. And it'll make shaping the top a little more difficult. It's fighting me because I got the tool rest too high for this tool, but I'm still getting it done. That's holding the handle up too high for it to cut right. All right, so we got ourselves our 1/2-inch spindle gouge. And what I want to do is I want to move the tool rest, swing it around quite a ways here to get the right angle of attack. There we go. And turn up the lathe a little bit. So we're just going to make us, a nice soft curve right here towards the top. It's like this. And then what I want to do, I'm going to just bring in my parting tool and create that divot, a little tiny little divot. That's where the screw eye will go. Be sure that there's no little nubbin in the way. And then I'm going to grab me make sure I get the right one. My pin vise with some very small drill bits. These are perfect for screw eyes to go in. And you just kind of slide it in there and make sure you go in straight and slide it straight back out. If you're not careful enough, you can snap that drill bit right into the piece of wood and then it's just shot. You got to start all over again on a new top finial. So I'm just going to remove some of this wood here. Get as close as I can up there towards the jaws. And then I'm just going to do one more cut here. I'm going to follow that same path. But I'm going to stop short. This is going to be kind of a design element on the top. Just like that. I'm going to grab me my very small detail gouge. I need to raise the tool rest just a little bit for this tool. Too high. So don't get lazy about this. If it's too high, you want to adjust it again. Now, the reason I'm doing this is sometimes you'll get tear out just like that along the edge there. So this is going to clean that up real quick. See, we got the flute closed. You just want to grab that corner right there. Just like that. Let's just draw it out, kind of clean that up. Do the same thing on the top. And we'll make sure all that nasty tear out. There's a nice crisp line right there, which there is now. That's good. And there's a little bit of a line right there. So I'm going to use my heavier spindle gouge here and just kind of clean that all the way out. Kind of a little groove in the wood. That's another thing about stopping and looking at your work with turning off the lathe. Gives you an idea of what's going on there. And just touch it up with a little bit of sandpaper. And we can turn the lathe down a bit. Now these I generally spray with a satin acrylic Krylon, or the same type, but using lacquer. But I won't spray. I spray all these separately, and then I glue everything together. So I got the oil on the glow, which I prefer over the spray, especially on burls. That's just my feeling about it. Not necessarily everybody's. All right, there we go. Let me grab me where did I throw them? There's one. Grab me a screw eye. And I don't glue my screw eyes in. The reason being, it allows whoever has the ornament to be able to gently turn the screw eye to where it's hanging on the tree, so you can see the part that you want to see on the ornament. If you glue these in, it's just kind of, you're just stuck however way you want to do it. And you just hold it up there and it goes right in. So now we need to part this off, making a tenon. It's like we did the bottom one, but smaller. So we want to measure the inside with the veneer calipers. Man, all right, everything's getting sort of tossed around now. There they are. They're under my parting tool.
Yeah, I've never had that issue either.
No, me either.
Nobody ever has. No wood turner has, right? No woodworker has.
Yeah, I didn't know that could even happen.
Yeah, right?
I usually find mine underneath with all the sawdust.
You're amongst friends, Scott.
Power savings. I got this pole with a big heavy magnet on it. Before I sleep anything up, I go through it like this.
Yeah, good idea.
I'm just to make sure.
Now, you guys have seen the box I built with the magnets that sits on top of my lathe headstock.
Yeah.
That's what that's for.
Right, but it's only as good as you put your tools up there.
I
I've got
have three of those
I got
calipers in that box.
Great. So I'm going to do the same thing for this. I need to turn it up just a little bit faster. I think I got the tool rest a little too high. So, and the tool rest is close to the jaw. So I do want to adjust it with the lathe off. It's a little too low. And I'm going to move it a little bit closer. Safety, safety. You want to make sure everything's safe and locked down before you turn on your lathe. There we go. That's better. And I want to leave enough wood there to create that same chamfer I did earlier on the bottom, so they match. It's like that. And we're going to undercut this one. It doesn't need to be as extreme because the top of the ornament is more flat. But you still want to undercut it just to make sure everything seats nice and there's no gaps in between the globe and the finials here. This one's a bit smaller. This is only going to be like 3/8 inch. So be careful when you're measuring it, getting this close to the jaws. If you feel more comfortable, turn off your lathe to do that. And it's still a little too big, so I just took the main part down. So I'm just cutting the depth half there. There we go. Just a little bit of play. That's what I was looking for. And we'll just take this down. I'm going to double check that. It's right up against the bottom. I'm sure it's going to go in the hole, which it will. That's good. So now I'm just grabbing that one parting tool. It's on a slant one more time. Do that undercut. So I just start on the outside here, just take a little bit of that chamfer away. Because the piece is so thin and small, it's going to vibrate on you a little bit. That's all right. I've never really had them come off at all. Just want to make sure that everything's nice and even there to where the calipers measured. And I'm going to touch this chamfer one more time on the back, just because we made that cut. You want to stop and make sure there's no tear out where that went through. That looks really good. This demo went really smooth, thankfully. Last words, right? Here we go. We're going to screw something up.
You got it.
Nah.
That is way too high for that.
As the kids say, let's go.
Yeah, I just want to make sure this is gonna. Man, that's way too small. Too high. See, this is a whole different kind of parting tool than your normal one, so you gotta really adjust your tool rest down a little ways. you don't want your handle up. You want it either straight or down, the back of your handle. There we go. And this thin parting tool also has a groove in it. It's got a little flute right in the top. So it creates like two little teeth right here. And that's how I was able to make those tall trees that I created those deep, thin grooves in. This is the tool I used to do it. So I'm not going to take this all the way off. I'm just going to get it. See how thin that is right there? Look how resilient that wood is. Didn't break off or anything. I've made ornaments that stick out this far. When I was parting it off, I didn't want them to fly out the room, so I turned them that thin. And they just spin there, no wobble, no nothing. There we go, just like that. And we got that. It looks really good on the top and on the bottom.
Do camera screen.
Well, let me get it like this first. So you guys can see
That
that
looks nice.
there's no gaps. Finial
Very
looks
nice.
really cool.
And it's
Beautiful.
beautiful. That is
Yeah.
That
beautiful.
is.
Good job, Scott.
I'm gonna have to try some of those icicle finials. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
All
Great
right.
job,
Scott.
Scott.
Great
Thanks for
job.
sharing,
Did
man.
it. Good job, Scott.
Great demo, sir.
Thank you. Hope I didn't talk your ears off.
Thank you, thank you.
No, excellent.
What do you,
instruction.
what do you say?